Hey everyone, I'm Greg with Spotted Tongue Woodworking and miter saw. This is the classic. This is probably going to be the first tool that a lot of people are going to pick up, getting into woodworking or carpentry or whatever. This is going to be the first saw. This is, for a lot of people, this is the primary saw that they will use for a lot of things. So the miter saw is very important. You go to a job site, whether decking or framing or whatever, trim work, that miter saw gets a lot of attention. This is the Milwaukee 10-inch M18 miter saw. I have a 10-inch because there's not very many cordless 10-inch options on the market, and I just don't like having to lug around a 12-inch saw. It's just a little bit too big for me. I don't get into materials big enough to justify a 12-inch saw. Do a lot of trim work, a lot of cabinetry installs, and this 10-inch saw does a lot more, does exactly what I need it to do. So the setup is all based around this saw. Obviously, everything is adjustable, can be made to fit a different saw with a different height base plate, but that's not what we're going to talk about. So we have my Milwaukee miter saw, and what we're on is the DeWalt miter saw base. DeWalt has two bases. They have a larger base and a smaller base. This is the smaller base, so that's only it's only 4 feet. With the wings outstretched, it's probably about 10 to 12 feet total length, with those extension wings extended out. And what we've got is we have these Paulk style, if you look up Paulk style benches, these are Paulk style miter wings, and these Paulk style miter wings are, I used the bolts that came with the miter stops on the extension wings with the DeWalt system, because there's not very many, and which is why the primary reason why I use the DeWalt miter stand. If you were to look up Spencer Lewis Insider Carpentry and see his miter saw setup, he uses the miter saw stands because there's not very many stands that have this ability to have things bolted onto the stands themselves. So that's the base. So we have, it's bolted into the stand there, and then with the extension wings, and then I also have it bolted on the extension wings themselves. So you can see it's, the extension wings aren't sturdy, so that's something I need to work on, but these themselves, you can, obviously they provide support for the material cutting on the miter saw, but they also provide a work surface that you can work on. So we have these, these two different miter wings. This is the first one I made, is my version 1. We did, the dog holes because it kind of helps with the sawdust, and also the add-on for be able to put on clamps or any accessories that I am looking for. So we have this version 1, and it's just 1/2-inch plywood, just for that lightweight, for it to be a little bit lightweight. Lightweight portability was the goal for this system. So this is just 1/2-inch birch that I had, and we did the cutouts, and I did it all, and really it's not a whole lot of room because we needed it to match, from the base of the saw to the height of the miter saw. There wasn't a whole lot of space to work with. So this was 3/4 of an inch. This is a 1/2 inch. I'm trying to have that rigidity, and it's very, very, pretty good, for a 1/2 inch, very, very solid. And again, we'll go talk to the second one, and we have the router, little cordless trim router mounted into the top of this wing. You see this is a larger hole, little miter, cordless router fence that bolts onto there as well. It has the vacuum hole, nice fit. So when the vacuum's on there, it's a very, very clean, very efficient system. So it's all, the router is right there. So for any little roundovers or any edge details that I need to do, we can set that up right there. And we went on, obviously you can't just have one, you need to have two. And I did two. We used pre-finished birch. You can see it has a lot nicer color. It's a lot smoother finish. Pre-finished birch, for a very similar setup to this, but what I did is that this is 1/2 inch, this is a 1/2 inch, so that's only an inch, and it still has pretty good rigidity. So bigger space, so you can fit tools better in there. On this side, you couldn't even fit batteries, so it's a good catch-all. But this side, you know, much better room, more functionality with that. The cutout for the router, I haven't mounted a router on this side, but the cutout is bigger, so you can reach it better. And then I did a bigger, just trying out new things. We did a bigger router fence on this side. So we have the two wings, which work, very nice. They are in plane with the saw, or at least at the most important critical junction. And from there, if you're doing trim carpentry, you're going to run across crown molding. So, taking a page from Spencer Lewis's setup with his miter saw stand, is that we have a crown stop that bolts onto either side there, and you can set it, and you can get the crown molding to sit right where it needs to be. Let me go grab a piece real quick. Yep, so we have crown molding. This is a small piece of crown, and you can, I actually have to have it set on two different holes, because I had set it up for these original holes. I had set up for this smaller crown molding, and then I did a job with larger crown molding, and I realized I didn't have enough flexibility either way. So we'll get that in there. I had bought this jig hardware kit from Tay Tools, and it's been a lot of fun just trying to figure out how I can better use these things. I found having just pieces that I can then think about, rather than thinking about something and trying to come up with what I need, really helps. So you can see, you kind of get that set. And so now, every time I make a cut, it's always going to be at the same angle on the crown molding. So that's why the crown stops. Issue that I thought about is I had cut it. I'm like, I have a 0, 22, 45. But then, due to the nature of angles, anytime I change the size of the crown molding, it's gonna cut in a different place. And then even if I don't set the saw up exactly center, it's gonna hit in a different place as well. So the zero clearance aspect didn't work, but it's still, it's an easily replaceable piece, and the functionality of it holding the position against the fence doesn't change. And then, added, just because workspace is a premium, and I'm really bad about just picking things up and setting things down, having just a little extra tool tray bolted onto the bottom right here is a big help as well. I can keep different glues there, tape measure, just have things available and functional. And so that's the setup. Then for the vacuum, we just have the M18 pack out vacuum with the dust extractor, the dust separator, which works incredibly well. We should just do a standalone video on this thing of beauty. So we have that. I just have a longer hose, because the hose that comes with this isn't that long. So we have that. It's set up right there. So the hose go on my miter saw, go on the router table, and then even if I table saw, we can have the table saw set up. We're working on a stand for that. But it's just having that very functional, very portable, can set up anywhere. And one of the reasons why we went, with the DeWalt stand is that it's plastic, it's metal, rather than like these Paulk style, Smart style, these benches, portable benches that have plywood bases. I was doing a job the other week. It had just snowed, 6 inches of snow. There's ice. And I was able just to set up the saw outside. I didn't have to worry about those legs getting wet. I didn't have to worry about them delaminating, soaking up water. It's just that this can go anywhere. Mud, rain, snow, whatever. I can just set this up. I don't have to worry about that. The weakness of this setup, I think, is that, if I just go on the just off of the base itself, is that the ends of these, even without these wings, the ends sagged. Having the weight on there, these do sag more. So I need to come up with something to be able to lift up that end, to keep it in line with the saw. So for both ends, for that, to lift up, have both of those ends lifted up so we can have a straight line all the way across. Because with those longer pieces, having that crown in the middle and the dips at the ends makes it harder to cut your miters holding the work piece straight up and down. Another thing that I want to figure out is some sort of material holding on the bottom. I was thinking the bottom of on the bottom of these to have some sort of L hook where I can hold trim, have trim here, because take a piece, put it down, take a piece, cut it down. You can do that there, but that gets crowded pretty quick. But just to keep it, to have it clean, have the space available rather than crowding it up, and to be able to hold longer pieces of stock under here. So that is one thing I do like about those plywood style bases that have the ability to set material on the bases and have them in place. So I need to figure out a way to hold the material. I need to figure out a good system for popping the ends of these wings up. So yeah, because this was V1, this is V2, and we're going to work with this for a little bit. I'd love to keep making iterations, but plywood does cost money and it does take time to do this. So having this set up and just figuring out what I really like and what I really don't. One thought I had was to actually have this, make a smaller, make a bench, maybe even the same height as this, just for the miter saw, and have that on there. And then these extension wings, make new ones and have that taller. So it's going to be almost double the height, so like a standard Paulk opening. So it'll lift up the miter saw, it'll lift it up on this stand, which isn't as, it's not a huge deal. It might actually be, help see better, because I feel like these benches are just a little low, but to have that up so that way there's space under the saw, there's more space here, and you'll be able to actually bolt the whole thing across and really keep everything in line. Because I talked about the edges of this going up and down, these ends going up and down, but it's also the weight of the saw. The saw wants to go like this, but these wings, the way they're leveraged, they want to go like this. So these corners line up, but this is higher than this because of the way that the saw tilts and the way that the wings tilt. So I either need to think of a way to lift that up, or a way to keep everything in line for these miter wings. I think I like the pre-finished plywood option for these. Another one would be getting a melamine coated plywood, like a laminate top, because that would also be slick and that would also resist glue. I don't know which way I want to go with it, but that is kind of my job site setup for doing trim work, for cabinet installs, is that this collapses down pretty small. The miter saw is going to be the most inconvenient part of it, but the 4-foot, this small DeWalt stand, these miter wings, it comes apart fairly quickly, collapses fairly quickly into a very small package, and doesn't take up a lot of space. So that is what I'm working with, and that's kind of what my thoughts on this. I would love to hear, if you made it this far, I would just love to hear what you think. Is this a cool idea? Is this a waste of time? What do you think I could do to make this system better and more functional? I kind of had listed a couple ideas of getting those ends raised up, maybe having it go all the way across. But I know, I'm only one guy. I can only think of so many things. I would love to hear what you have to say. So, Greg with Spotted Tongue Woodworking. This is my job site miter bench, signing off.